So, this week we're going to continue our exploration of the third precept that guides us to undertake the training to not misuse or disrespect living bodies, our own or others, and to learn ways to protect the safety, integrity of ourselves and others, and to respect ourselves, others, and preserve our shared happiness. I know sometimes we shorten the precept to say it's restraint from sexual misconduct, but really it's so much more than that. It's about how we hold and care for ourselves as well as others within this realm of our bodies and our sexuality in order to minimize suffering. And diving into this precept is challenging. As I've listened to the talks the past few weeks and begun to consider what I wanted to share today, it's actually brought up a lot of feelings in me, and feelings that are tender and vulnerable, and that I'm still working with in my practice. I don't think this is a topic that any of us find easy. And I just say this in the beginning as a reminder for each of us to be gentle and to find our own pace as we work with it. For those of you that were here last week, I'm going to play off of Susan's talk a little bit and continue to explore how we can learn to relate to our own bodies in a kind and healthy way. And maybe one of the main reasons we find this precept so challenging is the result of the culture in which we live. Our culture sends so many mixed messages to us about who we are as sensual beings with a body. As one hand, there's so much kind of titillation in advertising and commercials and TV and fashion. And at the same time, there's a deep sense of suppression in our laws, in popular religion, and certainly in politics. Our culture tends to objectify our bodies. It defines pretty clearly the image that's beautiful and valued, and that's youthful and attractive. And it denies our aging bodies. There's a whole industry created to keep us young by changing the color of our hair, masking our wrinkles, because otherwise we become kind of invisible. And culturally, our self-worth becomes defined by our appearance. So this is kind of the soup in which we are swimming, as Bill would say. And if we really look to our culture to guide us in a deeper way to discover and understand who we are and our inherent value, we may be disappointed, hurt, and possibly a little confused. These cultural messages from society at large, they're not just kind of out there. They're brought into our homes. And we live with the legacy of our parents and their parents' cultural beliefs. We've inherited them, and all of this has an influence on us. So here's one example that's very real for me. In my family, there was a strong emphasis on keeping up our appearances. Clean up, dress well, stay thin. It was really important to my grandmother, who, after being widowed at a very young age, wanted to fit in with her friends and acquaintances. So she raised my father to always present himself well. And now this was how he was raising his children, in the way he knew best. So when I was maybe 11 or 12, my parents put my sister and me on competitive diets. The first one to lose 10 pounds got $20. So we got into it. right? We stopped taking sandwiches to school for lunch, instead having containers of yogurt. We had carrot sticks for snacks. We passed on dessert, and we stopped sneaking the cookies from the back pantry. And most every morning we stood on the scales to see if our weight had dropped, and it had. But funnily, ultimately, neither my sister or I ever won the competition and collected that $20 because when we stepped on the scales, my parents kept saying we had lost 9.5 pounds and not 10. I might laugh at it, but the sentiment behind that diet has really never left me. It instilled deep in me the need not necessarily to be thin, because that's not my body type, but to always be just a little bit thinner. And it fed a need to compare myself to others often, trying to define my sense of self and self image mostly in comparison to someone else. There was kind of this unspoken competitive spirit that would arise, whether I was competing with others or just within myself. And it became the habit of mind to continually evaluate and judge myself based on my weight. If the scale wasn't positive, my critical mind could be pretty harsh, and it would cloud my thinking about who I was and my self-worth. These patterns of mind really were just variations on what we all know so well. I wasn't content with the way things were and with the way I was, but instead wanted more and wanted things to be different. And it was really painful. I don't think I'm alone in experiencing this kind of internal self-talk. And, maybe these habits of mind are stronger for women, but self-image, I think, is important to men as well. It might manifest slightly differently, but the patterns of mind are the shared. They're the same. And I want to be really clear that I'm really talking about habits of mind that we can learn to work with. And I'm not talking about more serious eating disorders that really need to be supported in additional ways. I'm in a really different place now than I was then. But 60 years later, there are echoes of these habits in my mind. I'm not exactly sure they'll go away, but I've learned to reframe my relationship to my body, to hold myself differently, and not let these patterns dominate. When I reflect back, it saddens me to see how much pain and confusion I felt because I wholeheartedly believed the messages from my family and the culture. And it's hard not to, especially at a young age. In so many ways, certainly around body image, all the messaging we hear in our culture leaves us kind of rudderless, with no real direction toward true well-being for ourselves. I kind of believe that this is one of the reasons that we each come to this daily sit, because these practices that we do here, they provide a certain kind of guidance and a direction to help quiet the critical habits of our minds and to build a deep relationship within ourselves. Those things that are lacking, I think, in our cultural messages. So first, I depend on the Brahma Viharas, those heart practices. And although they're not the direct focus of our study at this moment, they continue to infuse my practice, remembering to bring care and kindness and compassion to ourselves, especially to those places that we fight and that we habitually turn away from. Just this is life-changing. And the precepts that we're working with now, these ethical guides, they really feel like an anchor to me. They're grounded in harmlessness. And so just remembering to ask the question to myself, is this causing myself or another harm? It lets me pause, and it offers me some guidance with which I can consider my actions, provide a perspective that I can begin to trust to move towards more wholesome behavior. I really love using the word wholesome when I'm speaking of self-image and dieting and food. Of course, we want to be wholesome, just as we want to consume what's wholesome. So wholesome does not mean not restraining. Each of these precepts has an aspect of restraint, but it's restraint that's motivated by an intent to not cause harm to ourselves or others, and to not abandon ourselves. These bodies are a wonder. And I don't know where you were last week, but I live in Vermont, and the eclipse was a very big deal up here. And I really felt this. As much as the eclipse demonstrated the wonders of the universe out there, and it was incredibly wonderful, there is a whole universe in here too. And it's full of as much wonder as the eclipse was. Have been fortunate to study a fair amount of anatomy and physiology. And I've learned to be in total awe at the wisdom of this organism. The systems that allow us to breathe, that lets blood circulate, the feedback loops that keep us in balance, the resiliency that heals us. It is so complex and it is so beautiful. And it is full of so much innate wisdom. Even doctors don't understand how our bodies work. This body, heart, mind system, the whole organism, it's as much mystery as it is science. And it is so much more than its outward appearance. There is a whole world in here. Reflecting in this way really helps ground me. And it helps me remember what a gift it is to live with and in this heart, body, mind experience. So I want to honor and care for myself in a way that feels nurturing to that. I still watch what I eat because I want to offer my body what it needs to thrive. So that diet becomes a restraint motivated by care, not by judgment. And I do find the discipline to exercise most days, not for the appearance of a tight and firm body, but because it's what the body wants and needs. It's what it's built for in order to function at its best and to live with the most ease possible. And maybe most importantly, I notice my habits of mind. And when these old patterns arise, I give them some space and I take them a little more lightly. We can let the cultural messaging quiet, or at least learn to not take it quite as seriously. And we can more fully appreciate the gift that these heart, mind, bodies are. And when we do, we begin to realize it's not just us and our body, but it's everybody. We each are a wonder. And this is the direction that this precept guides us towards. So thank you so much for your attention. And now let's turn our attention towards our practice. And as we always do, bringing our attention first to our bodies. And maybe today with just a little more wonder as we offer them this opportunity to stretch and to awaken, to find a little more ease. Really respecting what it is that we feel like we need just today. And as you feel ready, bringing yourself into a posture that's more still, not totally still, but more still. And letting yourself settle in. Maybe shutting your eyes or at least having a downward gaze that enables you to bring more of your full attention inward to whatever you're experiencing in this inner landscape. And letting the stream of thoughts be as much in the background as possible. And noticing at first just how your body feels sitting here, grounded on the earth, the weightiness of that. Noticing the breath moving in and out, rising and falling. And noticing the quality of your heart space. As much as possible, bringing a sense of ease and gentleness to whatever is coming up for you right now. offering yourself a real sense of spaciousness that is allowing of whatever arises in your mind, heart, body. It's all welcome, it's all of interest. If you're inclined in these last part of this sit, turn your attention to your body and just consider all that's happening right now that enables you to be sitting upright, breathing, attentive. Breath, blood flow, blood pressure, muscles, bones. Tapping in, if you can, to a sense of wonder and perhaps gratitude. Even if your body isn't quote unquote perfect. What is it to hold yourself with this kind of appreciation? Thank you all.